Hello, and welcome to the Muse's Lab, your destination for all things spiritual, sensual, and pleasurable. Here I explore the nuances of our human experience, connect with practitioners to support your glow up, and share my lessons and blessings as perspective to move you closer to alignment and self-empowerment. I invite you to join me on this adventure of discovery and hope what you receive inspires you to become the muse of your life's journey. So without further ado, let's explore. Hello, and welcome to the Muse's Lab podcast. It's your girl, ShaVaughn Elle, and I'm doing something different this time. I am not just recording the audio, but there's going to be a video component as well. So for those of you who may want to watch this podcast in addition or as opposed to listen to this podcast episode, now you have options. Normally when I do a video, I try to do all the makeup and do all the things. However, I wanted to get this done not because I'm in a rush, but because I didn't want to put barriers in me getting this episode up. And I didn't want to overthink me recording. So I'm trying to figure out what my visual aesthetic would look like. And I kind of like what I did. I'm not gonna say what I did, but I kind of like the lighting that I created. Hopefully it translates well in video. So when you see it, it doesn't look wonky or crazy. You will see my shadow though, but it's just a shadow. I think that's fine. I think it's cool. It's not a haunted house shadow. It's just me in the back. So at the time of this recording, there is a social media trend. I'm going to call it Netflix documentary. It's probably called something else, but I'm going to call it Netflix documentary. And it's using the actual Netflix documentary soundtrack. And people are doing a air quotes POV on a topic, whether it's a true topic or a comical topic or whatever the topic may be. For most people, it's truthful topic, and they're using the sound and posting. Very short clip. Some people 10 seconds, some people 20 seconds, some people 40 seconds. So this trend has been going on for a couple of weeks, and I've been seeing it, and I kind of wanted to hop on the trend myself, but I was unsure what topic I would choose because there are multiple. There are multiple topics that I could choose from, but I was unsure what direction to go in. So I did it. And I chose the topic of me being an indie author, publishing my work through friends, which I'm using very loosely, friends who had their own imprints at the time and were publishing other people's books as well as their own at the time. And when that friendship ended, they unpublished my work. And when I'm saying friends, it's plural. It really is two people that I published my work through. And the second person, who I'll get into in a few, knew about my situation with the first one and still played in my face and still unpublished my shit. My brain wants to talk about royalties, but I'll get to that. I will cover royalties in this podcast. In this episode, I will cover royalties. Hopefully I can knock this out in an hour or less, because y'all know I like the gap. So hopefully I can knock this out in an hour or less and really get to the crux of the story and tell the story in a way that is adventurous, intriguing, and engaging, right? Because this really did happen to me. That was not a lie. This really did happen to me. So let me give you a backstory. I started out, before there was a Say with Sex, before there was a Muse's Lab, there was TheAuthorLT, or LT Robinson. And my current Instagram page went through 3 transformational changes. It went from TheAuthorLT, which was the profile I created when I published my very first novel. Then it was the LT experience. And then I transitioned to Save with Sex. And then I transitioned to the Muses Lab. But let's start with the author LT. I got my start writing erotica years ago. And when I'm saying years ago, I'm talking like 20 years ago. Back when social media, before it was what it is now, I was part of a Black Voices group on AOL. This is when forums and other type of community chats were really big back then. Something similar to like your Discords or your Reddits, but this was through AOL. And a lot of the participants that were part of the chat wrote erotica. And I wrote poetry and I wrote things. I want to say that was around the time I really started getting into more of a spiritual part of myself. I used to send out a daily message, email message, weekly. It was either daily or weekly, but I used to send out a message of affirmation or a message of encouragement on a daily or weekly basis when I was in college. And that transitioned ever so slightly after or post grad. So I graduated college in 2003. Yes. I graduated college in 2003. And I say the last time I did just an email blast type of encouragement or wellness message was like 2007. So for consistently for about 5 years, I was sending out like a message of the day. So I've always been this person. I didn't just evolve into who I've become now. I've always been this person. But writing erotica was a challenge for me because I hadn't really learned how to tap into that sensual, sexual side of myself. I wrote my first erotic short story. It was called Seduction. I wish I could find it. I was 16 when I wrote that story. I wish I could find it because I would like to see where my brain was at the time compared to where it is now. But I've always had a knack for the sensual. I've always had a knack for the sexual. And I know that can be a challenge to say at this age, recognizing that me in my tweens and in my teens was very sexually attuned. And I didn't really learn how to harness that energy until I was in my late 20s, early 30s. And I feel like it is beneficial for young girls and those who identify with their feminine energy to be able to recognize their sensual sexual energy early on and know how to harness it for their own usage and for their own power so that they can avoid utilizing it in an adverse way that is not beneficial to them, and or as well as that energy being taken advantage of because they don't have a grasp of what that energy and that aura is for them. So I'm gonna fast forward in the essence of time. I'm gonna fast forward to certain parts that are key moments in how we got to my work being unpublished. So fast forward, this is around 2012, 2011, 2012. I was working for this guy whose name shall not be named. And they had a lifestyle magazine. And there were other women who ran this magazine that this person who shall not be named slang dick with. You know what? It's so wild to know that there are entrepreneurial men who create businesses, have great ideas, are amazing visionaries, amazing strategists, have great ideas, but don't know how to properly manage their penis. And because they do not know how to properly manage their penis, they miss out on the scale and the greatness that these ideas can amass to simply because they be slinging dick and slinging dick in the wrong way. Because I mean, I'm going to veer off for a second. If you want to sling dick, if you want to sling dick, you can, but you just got to hold responsibly. And men just don't know how to hold responsibly. That's why they fuck themselves up every single time. But I digress. So after all of the women that this person who shall not be named slang dick with, I came in, Captain Save-A-Ho, and saved the magazine and ran it successfully for about 3-4 years. And while I did so, there was a Tasty Tuesday section where my bestie, the Kimmy Michelle, and a couple of other writers would submit short erotic stories, erotic poetry, and that would be part of the newsletter for Tuesday. That would be the Tasty Tuesday. I want to say the newsletter went out 3 times a week. Can't do that now because now people think you're spamming them if you send the newsletter out 3 times a week. But we did like a newsletter / email blast 3 times a week, and we had a Tasty Tuesday section. So testing the waters with myself, I contributed to the Tasty Tuesday, and I recognized that I didn't write like short poetry. I was writing mini stories, and there was character development, and then there was a series. And I was in grad school at the time and could not imagine writing like a 10-page paper until I wrote a 60-page thesis and thought, self, maybe you should write a novel. So a friend at that time had their own imprint and was also doing a lot of editorial work. Hadn't gotten into that side of myself just yet, but they were doing a lot of editorial work. And we talked about publishing my work and what that would look like. So I finished grad school in 2012. And from 2012 to 2013, I wrote a book that took me 11 years to write. There was a script, say about 2003, 2004. My first writing bestie, the Tiana Camille, her and I wrote a script called Pomegranates and Pumpernickel. I still have that script somewhere. So I have the script somewhere, but it was called Pomegranates and Pumpernickel. And she took a character, I took a character, and it was about these 2 women who were working women. I don't think we were calling ourselves millennials then. Well, actually, she's a Gen Xer, but we weren't calling ourselves by our generational name then. But 2 working women, successful women who were going through the bittersweet of love. I was inspired by that because we didn't really move with it. And I wanted that story. I felt like that story needed to be told. So back and forth, her and I, up until about 2007, back and forth, her and I were trying to get this script, which was supposed to be like a play. We were trying to get this script up and running, but life happened. She had a baby, and life happens, and things do things, and the script went on hold. At the same time, I wanted to write, because back then I thought of myself as a relationship guru, coach, or whatever. My relationships sucked, but I was great at telling everybody else what the fuck they could do. I was amazing at giving everyone else relationship advice, but applying that to myself, horrible. But I wanted to write this, not self-help, but like self-love or couples love book on best sex for married couples. That's where my brain was. This is more evidence to let you know I've always been this person. I've always been this person. All I did was just evolve and organize my thoughts and find a way to channel it into a focused, organized practice, if you will. But I wanted to write this relationship book that encouraged married people to have sex because at the time, I had a series of married friends or people who were coupled off, and they were just not having sex, or they were having horrible sex. And that bothered me, because why we get married and do all that work and the sex just goes to hell? The whole point of me getting married is so I can have a consistent sex partner. Is that not why niggas get married? Like, I was confused. So I wanted to find a way to take pomegranates and pumpernickel, and this story, it was a love story something. I can't remember the name. I changed the name of it 11 times. But pomegranates and pumpernickel, and this whole relationship, married people need to have better sex concept. And I wanted to find a way to fuse those things together. So I took the characters from pomegranates and pumpernickel, pretty much the concept, and flipped it into a novel. At the time, I became victim, and I'm doing air quotes. I'm saying victim, but I have to be accountable for myself. But I got caught up in the man whose name shall not be named. I got caught up in his dick slinging action, and it rattled me. It rattled me to my core, and it made me question if I was worthy of love. Because at the time, he was just another person who was emotionally unavailable that I ended up being in a situationship with, who was never going to choose me, who was never going to love me the way that I genuinely wanted to be loved, that gave me just above subpar sex. I wondered, had who I had been in my college years, one day I'll talk about that, but I wondered if who I had been in my college years was karma for why my relationships didn't work, or why I kept choosing the wrong type of guy to engage with. So which was not easy, coming out of that space, I used He Who Shall Not Be Named. I used him as a protagonist in my story. I used the two characters for pomegranates and pumpernickel. I took my life and applied it and created the novel Gemini Moon Rising, A Tale of Two Spirits. And the first fake friend, who I worked really hard with on getting that script together, I published with. They edited my work, did the cover. It was okay. It was my first book. So, growing pains. Here is what I wish I knew before I called myself publishing a 300-page novel. I wish I knew that I needed a platform first. I don't talk much about them, but Elle, she's way younger than me, but she published her first book at the age of 23. But before she published her first book, she had amassed this massive platform with her age-old wisdom at such a young age. I admire her. I think she's an amazing writer. She's an amazing sage, oracle. She's amazing. She has such great wisdom. She has such great thought. Her energy is amazing. I've sat in on a couple of her early morning writing prompts, workshops. Really, really good. She's a great facilitator. She's great at workshopping, you finding your voice. She's amazing at that. So I admire her very much. If I had known that I needed to do something like an Elle did before she published her first novel, we would be having a different conversation, potentially. But I didn't realize the importance of platform building. I had a small platform. I knew people, but unfortunately, the way they say it, or the way that it is said, sometimes your friends and family are not going to be the ones who support you. That wasn't necessarily my case, because my friends and family definitely support. My grandmother, God rest her soul, my grandmother bought my book. It wasn't to her taste, but she gifted it to somebody who loved it and was waiting for me to do a part two, which I wrote. I'll get to that. Bookmark that. I wrote the part two. Bookmark that. My friends and family supported me. I did a Kickstarter because the cost to publish a book, OMG, it is not cheap. Publishing a book is not cheap. The ISBN, the ISB, we call them ISBNs. I used to work in publishing. So the ISBNs, the ISBN number, those are expensive. Copywriting your work is expensive. Marking your name, those things cost money. You have to decide what type of distribution you're going to do. Are you going to be fully digital and online, or are you going to do print copies? And if you're going to do print copies, are you going to do hardcover, or are you going to do soft cover? Or are you going to do both? Are you going to do a commemorative book that's hardcover that you sign and you have an exclusive amount that you have for sale for those who buy them and purchase them first, and then you have soft cover copies? You have to think about those things. Like there has to be a strategy in place as you are writing your novel. That's why you have large publishing companies. They have built-in PR groups, brand teams that are built into that, because you have to shape yourself. You have to shape who you are in addition to your artistry, so that people who are interested in what you have to say and the stories you have to tell can find you, and that you can also make some money. Most people write books because they're looking to platform themselves. They're looking to authenticate their expertise in a specific area, whether you are an expert romance novelist, smut novelist, short story writer, whatever it may be. People write books to solidify themselves as an expert or an authority or a figure in a specific area. That's why people write books. They have a story to tell, and they want to position themselves as the person who has the right perspective and point of view in that story, right? Cool. I was not prepared. Even though I worked in publishing, I was not prepared to monetize my book. I was prepared to write it. Absolutely. At the time, I was teaching at an alternative high school, and during my free periods, I would work on my novel. I would stay up till 2 o'clock in the morning, getting in a chapter, character development, like really understanding character development, really building the dialogue and making it conversational. I mused. Ooh, I don't want to cry. I mused the Eric Jerome Dickey. That's who really made me want to write a story, because I was into Zane as well. But for me, Zane's stories don't have as much weight or as much merit. It's just smut. And it's good smut, but it's just smut, right? But Eric Jerome Dickey knew how to write a sex scene. He knew how to set the scene. He mastered the plot twist. When he died, I went like off the grid for like a couple of weeks, because without Eric Jerome Dickey, there would be no LT Robinson. True inspiration for why I wrote the way I did. I studied his books, and I remember having a book from the Gideon series. Remember having it open and looking at how they formatted the preface of the story and how he weaved the words together just to set the tone and give foundation to the story. Those things were very important to me. At the time, I didn't know I was an ADHDer, but I'm an ADHDer, so context is everything. I needed the context. So I used that as the foundation of my story. So I knew how to get that part done, but how to elevate and platform myself and monetize myself, I did not know. So I did a Kickstarter. I met my goal. I published my book. But after you publish the book, one, you need to start working on the second one, particularly if you're doing a series. You need to do that while it's hot. You have to start working on the second story, one. Two, you have to start positioning yourself and finding different areas of where your book can be a reference text for different type of conversations. So my book could be utilized in a conversation about relationships, a conversation about Black women in relationships, a conversation about successful Black women trying to find love, Black women who are married and the aftermath of divorce. There were so many different topics that could be extracted from my book where I could position myself to be in these conversations, be part of these discussions, and then selling my book as part of the package. These are things that I know now. I did not know those things then. So while I felt like I may have sold 100 copies of my book, now we get to the royalties part. For Gemini Moon Rising, A Tale of Two Spirits, I made $35. I'm gonna let y'all sit with that for a second. I made $35 off of Gemini Moon Rising, A Tale of Two Spirits. People would tell me all the time, oh, I bought your book. It was great. I bought your book. It was amazing. Oh God, girl, are you gonna do a part two? Da 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 da. Of course I'm doing a part two because I write things in threes. There's gonna be a series, like duh. $35 is what I got. I even put the book on sale for 99 cents. Even did that. $35. That's how much I made when I published Gemini Moon Rising, A Tale of Two Spirits. $35. So let's get into book two, which I wrote. And I was excited because I finished it. Then this is when Wattpad was a thing. I started doing small shorts on the characters to give like the backstory of the different characters and bring people into the world. I started building an ecosystem around the characters. So I used Wattpad as another way to build community around the story and community around myself as an author. It was a great, I think my Wattpad profile might still be up. It was a great way to connect with a broader audience. So when I wrote book two and I was ready to go through the publishing process, I was told, oh, you have to pay me blah, 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 blah. And I know you're not working right now. So I don't know how you're going to publish book two. The anger. Matter of fact, we in the year 2026. That was 10 years ago that I wrote book two and was ready to publish. 2 years after I published novel one, A Tale of Two Spirits. Tale of Two Spirits was published in May of 2014. By December of 2016, actually earlier than that, I say maybe about October, November of 2016, I already had book two done, ready to publish. What do I need to do? Oh, it's going to cost you like $3,000. I don't have $3,000. Is there a way that we can work something out? Maybe I just publish it digitally. I could get my bestie Kim to do the editing and we can barter and exchange somewhere. No, it's going to cost you $3,000. And right now I'm not really looking to publish anybody else's work. Blank stare. This was all via email. At the time, I did not realize that she was going through a divorce. I did not realize she was going through a divorce. And there were other personal things that were taking place. Could I reconcile with her? No. Mm-mm. Nah. Because you knew you was going through that shit. So you ain't have to come at me sideways. And I'm not chasing you. So it's okay. I'm gonna figure out how to platform myself. 2016 is when I learned how to do social media, and I taught myself how to do it. I met a lot of people along the way in that process. This is when Maddie James was Maddieology. Before she went by her full name, when she was Maddieology. All the big top influencers who are at the top of their game now, they were getting their start in 2016. And I started following them and learning how to do social media. I taught myself how to do the job that I get paid full time to do right now. All because I needed to figure out how to platform myself, how to build an audience, how to gain a community around myself as an author. 2016 was also the time that I met the other girl. That person, her and I connected. We graduated from the same college, not at the same time. She's older than me. But we were both going through a spiritual awakening, if you will. She had some other personal issues going on with her in addition to that. But we connected via social media. We had some commonalities. And I thought she genuinely was my friend. Now, around that time, I started my developmental editing practice. I started freelancing, became a freelance writer. I edited a couple of books. Some of your favorite romance gurus, I edited their books. I'm gonna leave that there. Some of them went on to become best-selling authors. I was also a ghostwriter. So I did ghostwriting for a couple people. There's a very popular relationship coach whose work that I did. I'm under certain NDAs, so I'm not going to reveal who that is. But in working with them, I referred them to the person who published my first novel. What I didn't know is the person who published my second set of books was working from a PR perspective for this relationship coach and helping to position them to get into rooms, to showcase their book, all the other things, right? So when her and I connected, the new person number two, when her and I connected and we started talking about that experience, she was like, oh, I didn't like her, person number one. I didn't really like her. She didn't seem like she knew what she was doing. I don't know, like even the cost just was like outlandish, blah, 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 blah. So we had some commonality, right? She knew what I went through. She knew what I experienced. She's also an author herself. She also published her own work. So together, her and I started working under her imprint, and we wanted to build a collective of Black romance authors, whether you were writing pure romance, paranormal romance, erotica, erotic romance, book club fiction. We wanted to hold space for Black authors, for Black women authors, for them to have a space to showcase their work. We had a vision collectively, at least that's what I thought. So I got my bestie, the Kimmy Michelle, to publish her erotic shorts through this new person's imprint. And I also published 2 novelettes and 1 short story compilation. So now 4. I published 4 books. 4. The short story compilation was digital only. The novelette series were digital and physical copies, soft cover books. There are people to this day who can pull up my books right now. There are people to this day who have all 3. Long story short, me and fake friend number 2 fell out. And I'll never forget the day that she emailed me and my bestie saying that she was unpublishing our work because she wanted to use her imprint to focus on her. And we had 30 days to reach back out to her to get all of our physical digital copies of our scripts, so on and so forth, handing over all of our elements, all of our things. And within 30 days, they would be unpublished. And that is what she did. I considered rewriting my work, still on the fence with it, but the dejected feeling I had by going through this again, a second time, with the second person who I thought was my friend, but because she couldn't contain me, because she couldn't Jedi mind trick me, because I woke up and realized who the fuck I was no longer of use to her. She needed acolytes. And for a while, I kind of was hers. That's another story for another day. But when I woke the fuck up, when I got my shit together and woke the fuck up, I realized that the friendship was no longer serving me. I didn't need to use her. I didn't need to use her imprint to create anything. I've always wanted to start my own imprint, and I almost did it. It's not a dream deferred, I should say. It's not a dream deferred, but when I'm ready, I will circle back to it. I have the domain name and everything. I actually had the website set up, but I took it down. But I have the domain name. So it's not out of the stratosphere of my mind. But when I'm ready, I will create my vision of having a place for Black people to showcase their work. So that's the tea. That is how I published 4 books through 2 fake friends who unpublished my work when the friendship ended. And they ended the friendship, to be quite honest. I didn't end the friendship. Them hoes blocked me. They blocked me, and because they held the keys to something that was beneficial to me, they knew that erasing the existence of my identity as an author would be the way that they can control the narrative and make me the villain. I'm the villain in a lot of people's narratives who have fashioned themselves as the victim. They are not. They are indeed foe. But anywho, I'll get back to it. I want to get back into writing. Who I was when I wrote Gemini Moon Rising, and even who I was when I wrote Black Widow Smoke and Phoenix, the Phoenix of the Dark Love series. The person who I was when I wrote those things has evolved. And the change isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I have been sitting with, what does 44-year-old ShaVaughn Elle want to say? I love the name LT Robinson, but I created it because I felt like I needed to hide, because I was writing nasty, dirty things, and I didn't want my family to be embarrassed by the things that I was writing or feel like I was bringing shame to the family name. So I created a pseudonym. I created a persona in order to navigate freely. And right when I was finishing up the 3rd book of the Dark Love series, Ascend, I said, that's the last book that I'm going to use LT Robinson. And from that point forward, I will be ShaVaughn Elle. And right when I reclaimed my name, that's when my work got pulled. So anything that I write henceforth is going to be in my name, because I'm not ashamed of who I am. I'm not ashamed of my voice. I'm not ashamed to tell the stories that I believe need to be told, the discussions that need to be had, the conversations that deserve space. I'm not afraid to set space and set the tone for that anymore. So I am sitting with myself to understand what 44-year-old me wants to say, how she wants to say it, and in what style that looks like. Who is and what is my writing persona now? What's the energy that this version of myself is ready to bring? Because when I was the TheAuthorLT doing Say It With Sex, honey, I was very confident in that person. And not to say that version of myself doesn't exist. It's just shaped differently. And I want to be clear. When I reemerge as an author, when my writing voice reemerges outside of my newsletter, when my writing voice reemerges, I want that version of myself to be very clear and very distinct. And I want people to know it's me when they read it. I don't want anybody to be confused. I don't want anyone to think I'm trying to co-opt someone else's personality, someone else's style. I want it to be clear that this is ShaVaughn Elle. This is her work. This is her voice. This is her perspective. And this is what she's sharing with the community. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Oh, man. I want to thank you all for tapping in to this adventure. I miss podcasting. My full-time job takes a little bit too much of my creative energy from me, but I'm going to push through, and I'm going to be on here more, and some of these will be audio and visual, and some of them will just be audio. But I am going to get back into yapping because that's what I do best. So thank you all for tapping into the Muse Lab. Until we meet again.
Thank you for tapping into this week's adventure. As always, don't forget to share the wealth with your community. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform. And to deep dive into the Muses Lab, join my Substack community at ShaVaughn.substack.com. For more information, hop into the show notes for references and ways to connect. Meet you on our next adventure.